Be sure to check the timestamps in the description to easily navigate the video. The Direwolves, companions of the Stark children since episode 1, perhaps showcase the best foreshadowing and symbolism we have witnessed in Game of Thrones. After returning from the beheading of a deserter of the Night's Watch, the Starks and company stumble upon a dead stag that had fought off a pregnant direwolf. Foreshadowing the doom that would soon find Robert Baratheon and Eddard Stark, the stag and direwolf lie dead in the dirt. The meeting of these two beasts inevitably resulted in death, as Robert, House of Baratheon, sigil a stag, and Eddard of House Stark, sigil a direwolf, would face in the nearby future. With the 5 direwolf pups being found, the bastard Jon Snow convinces his father, Eddard Stark, that it is a sign. 5 pups for the 5 Stark children. Before leaving the site of the fallen mother direwolf, a 6th is found. Being the runt of the litter and noticeably different from his siblings, the bastard had found his wolf. And welcome back to LycanStudios. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that intro. I thought it was pretty cool, I'm not gonna lie. If you guys did enjoy it, I may start doing more like it. Make sure to smash that thumbs up button if you did. And yeah, let's do the channel shout out real quick before we start talking about the Direwolves, the symbolism, and the theories behind them. So today's shout out goes to my man Jomo. Everybody make sure to leave a comment saying, Jomo, you're awesome. He's been here for a long time, always supporting my videos and stuff, always leaving a comment, smashing the thumbs up button and stuff. So I just wanted to say a huge shout out to him. Thank you so much, man. And last but not least, make sure to leave me a question in the comment section below if you would like to be featured in the Q&A coming up very soon. I need a couple more, so definitely leave me some. So starting off with the Direwolves, one of the most important things that you need to know is this is actually the first scene that came to George R.R. Martin's mind when writing this book. He was quoted saying that he was working on a different book at the time, but this scene just came to his head vividly, so strongly, so powerful that he basically turned it into what we know as Game of Thrones or A Song of Ice and Fire. The symbolism that we are talking about today could show you that George actually had all of his fates for his characters sealed just during this first scene. So we noted in the beginning how once the stag and direwolf's paths intertwined, they both were inevitably killed. How often do you actually see 2 animals killing each other at the exact same time? It was not an accident that George portrayed it this way. He was showing that once Ned met Robert once again and their paths intertwined and they both headed south, that they were both going to die. They didn't necessarily kill each other like the 2 animals, but their actions led to their consequences. And likewise, George has tied the fates of the children with their direwolves. We're going to start with Jon, and then we're going to work our way through the Stark children, starting with Robb and ending with Rickon. We're just going to go by age. So I'm sure everyone knows that Jon Snow is the bastard child of Ned Stark. Psych, he's actually his nephew. We find that out later on. But at the time, Jon is just a bastard who doesn't really fit in with his family. Remind you of anything? Kind of like the direwolf he finds that's already the runt of the litter, looks completely different being all white with fiery red eyes and is away from his litter mates. Jon finds him right before he heads back up the little hill to get back onto the path to head back to Winterfell. Naming his direwolf Ghost, he has an appearance of being all white with fiery red eyes. What does that make you think of? It could make you think of a Targaryen, kind of like Jon ends up being, with white hair and blood eyes, fire and blood. It also kind of reminds me of a weirwood tree, all white with red eyes. Jon is known to be firm with the old gods, whereas I believe the other children kind of look into the new gods as well to follow their mother. I think Robb and Arya may lean more towards their father's gods, but I think they still believe in the 7 a little bit. With the name Ghost, it also foreshadows that Jon is killed by his Night's Watch members and then brought back, just like a ghost. Another similarity that is probably just how they gotta work it in seems to be like Jon always shows up at the perfect time, as well as Ghost. Hopefully Ghost shows up for Season 8. Next up, we have Robb and Greywind. Now these two probably have the least number of examples, but the theory and symbolism still fits. I think the biggest overlooked one is how loyal Greywind was to Robb. Together, they struck fear into the hearts of their enemies. Most people thought of them as one. When Greywind was locked away during the Red Wedding, I think it represented Robb ignoring his oath and honor which he paid for with his life, and so did Greywind. Their spirits were so linked that even in death, they found their bodies sewn to one another. Robb was very loyal and honorable until he broke his one promise, which resulted in the same fate as his direwolf, being shot by arrows. Following Robb, we have a very deep one. We have Sansa and Lady. And a fun fact, I do have to say that in real life, Sophie Turner actually adopted the dog that played Lady. I thought that was pretty cool. But anyways, we all know what happens with Lady. There's a fight going on between Arya, the butcher's boy, and Joffrey, and Nymeria manages to bite Joffrey. With Nymeria being ran off, Lady is substituted as the direwolf that is there and is killed at the hands of Ned Stark. So I think the main thing that is represented, since this is one of the only times we have a direwolf dying, but not a character dying, is the ladyhood of Sansa Stark. I think this begins the shift where Sansa realizes that the songs are not reality. The beautiful knights in the songs who rescue the damsels in distress and take care of the women are not realistic. This is the shift where she begins to see the politics for what they truly are, bloody and evil. With the death of Lady coming from Ned's own hands, this could also show where Sansa's ties with the Starks are kind of broken. She goes on to inform Cersei of their plans to leave while trying to remain in her good graces and to keep the king supposedly loving her. I believe Sansa was just confused at the time and she still was trying hard, but I'm sure her father killing her direwolf when it was Arya's direwolf to blame definitely hurt her. This pretty much began the process of the initial movement of kings in Game of Thrones. I could also add in the fact that this was the result of her lying in the first place, so her ladylike attitude was starting to change. And the last thing that I want to touch on is this could be for the future, so maybe a spoiler, I'm not sure yet. This could mean that Sansa dies in place for Arya, but that's for another video. Next up we have Arya and Nymeria. Now Nymeria is named after a fierce female warrior from the past. We already know that Arya is down the path to perhaps become a fierce warrior. We definitely know she is not ladylike, like her sister Sansa. Now we talked about it before, but Nymeria is actually the first direwolf to leave. She is ran off by Arya to escape Cersei's wrath after biting Joffrey. So in other words, Nymeria runs off to escape Cersei and ends up joining a pack to survive. Does that sound like Arya? Arya ends up leaving King's Landing with Yoren, forming a pack of her own with Hot Pie, Gendry, and a few others, on her way to survive. Now it is interesting because we do see Nymeria once again, with Arya saying that is not her. It's very interesting and shows a lot about the tie between the two characters. Do you guys think we'll end up seeing Nymeria in the pack once again? I think we will. Then of course, moving on, we have Bran and his direwolf, Summer. Summer is a very interesting name because winter is coming. Summer not only has a lot of symbolism, but also helps Bran become the three-eyed raven. It is known that Brandon Rivers sent the direwolves to begin with, starting this whole process for Bran into becoming the three-eyed raven. With Summer being killed by White Walkers, it is official. Summer is dead. Winter has begun. With her death, I believe that Bran, as we know him, is also dead. He is now the three-eyed raven, and the Bran that we knew ceases to exist. It's also noted that Summer's name could foreshadow the fact that the three-eyed raven will play a huge part in ending winter and also bringing Summer back. And last but not least, we have Rickon and Shaggydog. Rickon's whole story has pretty much been tough. From the moment Ned rode off to King's Landing, he was without a father. Shortly after, he was without a mother as she rode off as well. And then once Ned dies, he was left without his oldest brother who rode off to war, only to find that his youngest brother, Bran, had survived the fall but was paralyzed and was slowly becoming the three-eyed raven. Shaggydog was known to be super wild, just like Rickon. It was almost if they weren't raised by anyone because all of their authority figures and parental figures were pretty much gone. So like Shaggydog, Rickon was wild. He was known to run away, to punch people, to act crazy, and his direwolf was known to bite and even had to be locked up at one point. What's very interesting is the name Shaggydog. Shaggydog in storytelling is basically when you have a story that is really hyped up only to pretty much end up pointless. Almost like Rickon's character. Jon goes through this whole battle with Ramsay just to save Rickon, who ends up not zigging and zagging and takes an arrow to the back. And there you guys have it. That is how the Direwolves have played a huge part in Game of Thrones. And I think that's what you need to know about the Direwolves for Season 8. I was thinking this whole time, I think I might actually turn this into a series. We'll call it something like What You Need to Know Before Game of Thrones Season 8, and then we'll base it on some subject. What would you guys like to hear about next? Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. Make sure to smash that thumbs up button if you did. We'll see you in that next one. This has been LycanStudios. Peace.